Good morning, everybody. My name is Larry Schwartz, Secretary to Governor Cuomo. I'll be emceeing today's summit. Just a little housekeeping, if I may. First, I just want to let everybody know today's Wine, Beer, and Spirits Summit is going to go from 10 to 2. We're going to have a morning session from 10 to 12. We will break for lunch for 1 hour. We'll reconvene from 1 to 2. And at approximately 2:30, we'll have buses bringing our participants and guests here over to the State Mansion for a New York wine, beer, and spirits tasting. And you'll be brought over from the Capitol by bus over to the mansion and then back over to the Capitol once the tasting is completed. In addition, besides welcoming everybody and saying good morning, I'd like to introduce a few of our distinguished guests that are here today. First, to my left, the Honorable and our great Governor of New York State, Governor Andrew Cuomo. Also, Lieutenant Governor Robert Duffy. State Senator Patricia Ritchie, Chair of the Ag Committee and representing Senator Fellow. Assemblyman Bill McGee, Chair of the Assembly Ag Committee, also representing Speaker Silver. We have Commissioner Darrell Orbertine from the Department of Agriculture and Markets. Commissioner Joe Martens, Department of Environmental Conservation. President and CEO Gil Quinones from the New York State Power Authority. Chairman Dennis Rosen from the New York State Liquor Authority. Commissioner Peter Rivera from the Department of Labor. And Jim Malatras, the Deputy Secretary for Policy Management. Back in August, we held a yogurt summit. And today, we're hosting a New York Wine, Beer, and Spirits Summit. And I'm sure there will be more summits to come in the near future. Summits and conferences are not only about bringing businesses and industry leaders together. It's more than just focusing on regulatory and legislative issues. It's about listening to you. It's about learning from you today. It's about asking you questions like, what are we doing that helps? What are we doing that hurts? What could and can we be doing better? What do you need from us? This meeting is a reflection of the culture change that Governor Cuomo has instilled in his administration and in state government. I couldn't wear this pin today because I'm wearing my New York Wine, Beer, and Spirits pin, but this is a pin that I received from Governor Cuomo and all the members of administration has received when he became governor of the state of New York. And there's a very important line on this pin. It says, I work for the people, okay? It's not a slogan. It's more than words on a pin. It is a reality in his administration. It's his mission statement. It's our mission statement. It's about bottom up, not top down. It's about empowerment, empowering you and empowering your businesses and your industry. It's about how we adjust to your needs and not the other way around. It's about serving you and treating you like a customer the same way you treat your customers. And that starts today by recognizing how important your industry is to the future of New York State. New York State's wine, beer, and spirits industry is one of the most robust in the nation. The industry supports tens of thousands of jobs and drives more than $20 billion in economic activity across the state every year. There is no doubt that this is an exciting time to be a beverage producer in New York, and we look forward to hearing from you all today. What I'd like to first do is invite everyone sitting around this table to introduce themselves. Starting to my right, Elizabeth.
Hi, I'm Elizabeth Ryan. I own and operate Breezy Hill Orchard. I'm a 30-year apple grower, a proud graduate of Cornell University. I have 100 acres of fruit, and I am now producing an artisan hard cider. I'm here representing the interests of apple growers and cider makers, and I want to thank you, Governor, for such a historic moment to be part of this process with you.
Thank you very much.
My name is David Katleski. I'm the co-founder and president of the New York State Brewers Association. I'm also the founder and owner of Empire Brewing Company, and I too am humbled by being here today. Thank you.
My name is Mark Murphy. I'm a chef and owner of restaurants that buy your beautiful product in Manhattan, and I'm also part of the New York State Restaurant Association. Thank you for having us.
Rick Sampson, President and CEO, New York State Restaurant Association. We're an organization with 77 years here in the great state of New York. We represent over 11,000 restaurants statewide, which includes New York City, border to border. And again, Governor, we're here to help in any way with our organization toward promoting products.
Hi, I'm Oscar Vizcarra. I own Becker Farms and Vizcarra Vineyards. I'm also president of the Niagara Wine Trail.
My name is Ralphie Renzo. I'm co-owner of Tuttletown Spirits in Gardner, New York, and we were the first makers of whiskey in New York since Prohibition. We employ 18 people, and we've been at it for about 9 years now. Our goods are now sold in 9 EU countries, every U.S. state, and Australia.
My name is Phil Randazzo, and thank you, Governor, for hosting this wonderful event. I own Coyote Moon Vineyards in the Thousand Islands area of Clayton, New York. I'm president of the Thousand Islands Seaway Wine Trail with 7 members, soon to be 9. Past president of the Northern New York Grape Growers Association.
I'm Neil Evans. I'm with C.H. Evans Brewing Company at the Albany Pump Station. We have been in business now for 13 years. My family originally had a brewery in this state from 1786 until 1920, and we know what happened in 1920, not a very good year. But we've come back dramatically, and we really appreciate everything the Governor has done for us.
Thank you. Good morning. I'm Margot Sue Bittner from the winery at Margin Manor, and I do work with the Niagara Wine Trail as well. My winery is in Niagara County. We will have over 40,000 people through our door this year. It's grown from 5,000 when I first opened, and I appreciate the opportunity.
I'm Rich Lozniak. I'm the CEO of the Genesee Brewery. Since our Lieutenant Governor helped save that brewery a few years ago, we've doubled employment to 600 people in New York. So thank you, Governor, and I'm very honored to be here today.
I'm Larry Perrine from Channing Daughters Winery in Bridgehampton, New York, on the east end of Long Island. I'm also a proud graduate of Cornell University, and I'm also on the board of the New York Wine and Grape Foundation and Long Island Wine Council and the planning board in the village of Sag Harbor, and a few other things. And I'm really honored to be here today to engage in this conversation. Thank you very much, Governor, for having me.
Governor, I'm Steve Bates. I'm Executive Director of the Long Island Wine Council, which has 48 member wineries. All of them very much appreciate this initiative. Thank you.
And I'm Pete Salton, and I always say I'm a co-owner with my wife Tacey at the King Fair Winery on the east side of Key Lake. I'm very excited to be here today. It's just so nice to get out of the winery after a hard harvest and get some great wines in the tank, but it's just nice to get away. So thank you for giving me this opportunity.
Robert Bookman, partner in the Manhattan law firm Possession Bookman. We for 30 years now specialize in representing small business owners and especially liquor license holders. But we're here today representing the newly formed New York City Hospitality Alliance that you may have heard of. It's the first time a New York City-based organization representing all aspects of the industry, from bars and restaurants, destination hotels, and industry suppliers. A few of our members, Empire, Anheuser-Busch, Manhattan Beer, are also here today. We are very excited about this opportunity. The timing is perfect for us to take on the issue about how we can give better exposure to New York State products in New York City's restaurants and nightlife.
Good morning, Governor, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you for having us. My name is Bob Medill. In addition to being a co-owner of Celebrate 20 Vineyards in the Finger Lakes, I'm also chair of the Finger Lakes Wine Alliance, an association of winery owners that have been promoting brand Finger Lakes now for over a decade. We're delighted to have this opportunity.
I'm Jeff Baker, owner of Hill Rock Estate Distillery in Ancrum, New York. Pleasure to be here. We, I believe, are one of the few field-to-glass operations in the world. We just completed construction of the first new malt house in the country at a distillery, and we're just happy to be here.
Good morning. I'm Jeannie Clark. I'm Vice President of Community and Government Relations for Constellation Brands, which is the largest premium wine company headquartered in Victor, New York. I'm also representing as President of the New York Wine and Culinary Center in Canandaigua, New York. And I really want to say I'm here because of the wonderful private-public partnership that we have enjoyed in building the New York Wine and Culinary Center with the state, with Constellation, Wegmans, RIT, and our partners at the New York Wine and Grape Foundation. It has been a wonderful tribute to New York State products. It's seen over 500,000 visitors in the past 5 years, and look forward to this summit and partnering in any way that we can with our industry.
Good morning, Governor. My name is Dean Norton, President of New York Farm Bureau. It is my honor to be here again today, as it was during the Yogurt Summit. And I would like to tell our friends here today that the announcements that you made at the Yogurt Summit, you fulfilled those promises. Your staff administration is moving forward to make those changes, and I appreciate that, and that just goes to show that when you set a course for your administration and for New York State, that it's going to happen. And I'm excited to be here today to see what we can do to help the wine, beer, and spirits industry also thrive in New York State.
Good morning, Governor. My name is Steve McCormick, and I represent Anheuser-Busch InBev. I'm the general manager of the Baldwinsville, New York Brewery, and thank you very much for inviting us here today.
My name is Paul Brock. I'm from Finger Lakes Community College. I'm the instructor and coordinator of the Viticulture and Wine Technology program there. I am also a winery owner. I own a vineyard and a small winery, Silver Thread Vineyard, with my wife, Shannon. And I kind of like to say that I'm representing the hopes and dreams of people who want to be in this industry, the winery industry, but also in the brewing industry and the distilling industry. I got a lot of people because there's not a lot of formal education for that. But we focus on vineyards and wines, and I thank you very much for allowing us to be here and all the support that we've received so far getting this program up and running.
Good morning, Governor Cuomo. I'm Steve Miller from Cornell Cooperative Extension. Thank you very much for inviting all of us to be here. My job is to help get the hop industry started in New York State, and they're very anxious to be selling to brewers all over New York. Thank you.
Good morning. My name is Lillian Taylor, and I own Bully Hill Vineyards. Thank you for your invitation, and I'm proud that I run a business in New York State and that can buy New York State grapes and make a business very successful without asking for any help.
Hi, thank you very much again for having us. My name is Carlo DeVito, and I co-own the Hudson Chatham Winery along with my wife, Dominique. I am also one of the co-founders of the Hudson Berkshire Beverage Trail, and I'm the president of the Hudson Valley Wine Country, and want to thank you on behalf of all the members of that organization as well.
Good morning. My name is John Martini, and with my wife, Ann, we own Anthony Road Wine Company and Martini Vineyards in the fabulous Finger Lakes. I'm also on the board of the foundation and a number of other odd jobs here and there. I sell my wine in Union Square Green Market every Saturday in New York City. It's the money's good and the show is great. You see things there you don't see in Penn. Thank you.
Amen to
that. So thank you very much, Governor. I appreciate the invitation. Good to see you, John.
Good morning, Governor. I'm Jim Trezeis, President of the New York Wine and Grape Foundation, an organization that was created by unanimous vote of the legislature in 1985 and signed into law by Governor Mario Cuomo. I have the privilege of representing the grape juice, and wine industry and supporting them through the partnership with the state of New York in terms of research and promotion. And we thank you for your support of our industry and for having us here.
Good morning, Governor. Thank you for inviting all of us. My name is Nick Matt. I am Chairman and CEO of the FX Matt Brewing Company. We are a 124-year-old brewery that has been doing business in this state all that time. I'm not speaking of myself personally. I'm talking about our company. I want to clarify that. We're proud to be a part of a resurgence in the brewing industry. We have seen the bad times and the good times, and this is a terrific time, and I hope that we can take advantage of this and create even more jobs in New York State. Thanks for having us.
Well, thank you all. Thank you for joining us today. I just want to recognize Ken Adams, the President and CEO of the Empire State Development Corporation, who I apologize for omitting. And with that now, I'd like to introduce our great governor of our great state, the Governor Andrew C. Cuomo.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Thank you. Well, first I want to thank my administration, who's worked very hard on putting today together, and I thank them very much for being here, Lieutenant Governor Bob Duffy. My colleagues in the legislature, Assemblyman McGee and Senator Patty Ritchie, who we've done a lot of work with together, and one of the best successes we've had here over the past couple of years in Albany is that we've actually been working together rather than working at cross purposes, and I want to applaud them and thank them very much for being here as representatives of the State Senate and the State Assembly, and all of you who took really valuable time away from your businesses and traveled long distances to come here. We know how busy you are running your businesses and doing what you do, so we thank you very much for taking the time out. This is a slightly different kind of convening for Albany. I would like to say we do this every day, but we don't. Wait till you see the governor's mansion this afternoon. That looks really different, you know. FDR never saw the mansion that way. I can promise you. It's set up like a tasting. I was thinking it looks so good. As a matter of fact, I was thinking of starting a little business my own on the side. Taste of New York at the governor's mansion. I have a parking lot right there. I just didn't want to have to go through SLA for all the permits, to tell you. Kidding. Half kidding. No state, Dennis. It's going to get worse. But it's a different kind of convening, and it's a different day. It's a different world. You know, it's a different economy. And we're going to have to do things differently. We've been focusing, a big part of what we've been doing over the past couple of years is about the economy. Why? Because first, the national economy is going in fits and starts, as we know. We also know that this state has not done itself any great favors over the past few years when it comes to dealing with business. We have an anti-business reputation. We have a reputation as a high-tax state, high-regulation state, difficult state to do business. And that's taken its toll. And we're trying to reverse all of that. We're trying to get the economy running. We started with a three-part plan. First part was get the state's own financial house in order and make the state government work, right? Everything starts in the home. And this state government didn't balance its own budget, didn't pass laws. The dysfunction of the state government was legendary. That hurt business. And we made progress in that regard. We've balanced our budget for the past 2 years. We've gotten our financial house in order. We reduced taxes in the state of New York. For middle-class New Yorkers, between $0 and $300,000 income per year. Now, they call 300,000 middle class. I call it upper middle income. But 0 to 300, lowest tax rate in 58 years. 58 years. Just think about it. So it's a different New York than it was, and we're trying to communicate that. And that was the first track. The second track is to reach out to the regional economies, because that's how this state really works. There is no one New York State economy. We all talk about the state economy. The state economy is the aggregate of the regional economies. But Long Island is an economy, the North Country is an economy, Western New York is an economy, and unless you deal with them individually and develop them organically from within, it's not going to work. So we flipped the whole state economic development program, and we basically turned it into a program that works through the regions. So we spend a lot of time, the Lieutenant Governor's in charge of this, working with the regions,
to get their plans together, for them to come together. And that's easier said than done also. You know, the concept of the region is right. But you go to 8 counties and say you now all have to work together. You say to all these mayors, you now all have to work together. Academic institutions, you have to work with government. Government, you have to work with business. You know, it's easier said than done. But we've had good success on the regional level. And I encourage all of you to work with those regional economic development councils when you go back home. They're doing great work. We're putting a lot of funding and a lot of energy into those regional councils. So I suggest that they could do a lot of good for you back home. That's the second track. And the third track is what we call entrepreneurial government. Now, entrepreneurial government is a term that I made up, and they said, well, you can't say that because people will laugh if you say that. I said, why will they laugh? They said, well, that's an oxymoron. You can't have an entrepreneurial government. I said, no, but that's my exact point. You have to have an entrepreneurial government. That's the way the economy is working nowadays. It's more than just public-private sector partnership. You have to come together in an affirmative unit where government is working with business like they've never done before, because the economy is that tough and the competition is that tough. And if government doesn't get that it has to be entrepreneurial, then that government's not going to survive, and that region's not going to thrive. So yes, entrepreneurial government. You want to call it an oxymoron? You want to call it provocative? You want to call it a culture shift? It is. But that's where we have to get. So part of entrepreneurial government is find creative ways to help work with business. And I'm very big on what they call cluster economies. You know, when is the economy going to come back? The old economy is not going to come back. If this state sits around waiting for the old economy to come back, it's going to be sitting here for a long time. The question is creating the new economy. And the new economy is around cluster economies and business synergies and identifying startup industries and clusters that you can develop together. Dean mentioned the Yogurt Summit, which was our first meeting of this type with the yogurt industry. Small industry, niche industry, but great, I believe, promise as an industry and great promise for the state of New York as a jobs generator, et cetera, especially in upstate New York with the agricultural industry. So we're spending a lot of time working with that industry. I think your industry has tremendous potential. First of all, the numbers in your industry are astronomical. I mean, the growth has just been staggering right across the board. Now, we obviously have a long and proud history in the wine industry. Oldest vineyards in the nation are in the state of New York. And going back to my father, I've had long experience working with the wine industry. But tremendous growth even in the wine industry. And I still believe there is more growth there because I believe our product has not gotten the attention that it deserves. I believe in our own state we haven't done enough with the wine industry. So that's part of it. The distilleries and the craft breweries have exploded. By the way, all the numbers over the past 2 years have had phenomenal growth right across the board. But the microbreweries up 74% over the past 2 years to 75 now in the state. Wineries up 17% over the past 2 years. Farm distilleries up 211% to 28 in the state of New York. Now this is all happens to coincidentally be the same period of time that I've been governor of the state of New York. Is there a connection between my governorship and people drinking more? I don't know. But if they're drinking more New York product, great, I'm happy. So there's been a period of tremendous growth. I think there is a lot more to do. And the question for today, as Larry posed it, what can we do together? First, what are we doing that is not productive? And don't be shy. What are we doing that poses a burden? A lot of these laws are historic, archaic, and were written at a much different time. So don't be shy about telling us what we're doing that we shouldn't be doing, because the last thing we want to do is be a burden. Second, how do we help? What do you need? And how can we help do it? You know, we are a partner of yours in your business. You could say a forced partner, but we have a percentage of your business, as I'm sure you know. I'm sure you wish I had a smaller percentage of your business. But I'm happy with the percentage I have right now, I want you to know. So we are in business together, and we want to grow the business. So tell me what you need. How do we invest? What products can we bring to the table? And also the group itself, the connections that we can make even within our own state. If we open, we have representatives from the New York City Restaurant Association here. If we open that New York City market big time to New York products, just that would be a big difference. And I am very bullish on buy New York and buy local and be proud of the state and patronize the state. And I think those are connections that we can make all day long. So even just within this room, there's a lot of business literally that can be done by just making connections with people in the room. This is the beginning of a dialogue. I don't believe that we're going to come together today and solve all the problems. But I believe it can be a start and a good start. And I believe we've already made a good start because we've done a lot of work in anticipation of this meeting. We've also already taken some legislative actions that have done a lot of good work because we've been cooperating up until now. But that's the point of today. And we'll have a discussion this morning, and we'll start a dialogue, and then we'll go over to the mansion this afternoon, and we'll actually taste the product of our efforts. So thank you all very much for being here, and I look forward to participating in the conversation. Thank you.
Thank you, Governor. Now we'd like to hear from our industry leaders and business owners who have joined us here today. I'm going to ask Jim Trezise. Jim, I hope I pronounced your last name correctly.
Yep.
From the New York State Wine and Grape Foundation. Jim?
Thank you very much, and again, thank you, Governor, for having us all here today. And I'm particularly excited because I've had the privilege of watching over 30 years the power of partnership. And it started in 1985. I'm a native New Yorker from Rochester. I worked and traveled around the world for a number of years before I came back in 1982 as executive director of the New York State Wine Grape Growers. And at that time, what I found was an industry in crisis, literally. Vineyards were being abandoned. John remembers this. Wineries were being padlocked. Tourists were flocking away from the regions because they were so ugly. And worst of all, there was no hope. It was just a landscape of despair. And then 2 years later, everything changed. And it was really remarkable because everything turned around. And what happened? It was basically climate change. I'm not talking about the climate change people are talking about these days. I'm talking about business climate change. And the way that happened, I remember it very well, is in the fall of 1983. Governor Mario Cuomo read an article in the New York Times, big article, about how the grape and wine industry was going down the tubes. He picked up the phone and called his Commissioner of Agriculture, Joe Girassi, and said, this was a Friday afternoon, by the way, I want a solution Monday afternoon. Commissioner Girassi called me and said, I need a solution Sunday at noon. I called my wife, and I'll see you next week. And basically, this was the start of an opening dialogue at a time of crisis. And I'm happy to say that the commissioner and the governor, and then, of course, legislators, because as we know, it takes 3 to tango in Albany, people started listening, and they really cared. And, of course, we got New York Farm Bureau involved, which has been the best partner we could ever imagine for public policy matters and so forth. And so all of a sudden, people started tending their vineyards. The wineries reopened, the tourists came back, and most important, there was hope and confidence in the future, and we were once again proud to be an industry that was starting to grow. It was a sea change. And really, we became from an economic cripple to becoming the fastest growing industry in agriculture and tourism in New York State, and these are 2 very big parts of our economy. So that today we have over 320 wineries in 53 of New York's 62 counties. Manhattan, Queens, Brooklyn have wineries. And they're in places like North Country where we would have never thought there would be wineries before. We went from welcoming 340,000 tourists in 1985 to over 5 million today. We generate $3.76 billion in economic activity for the state of New York every year, including $230 million worth of state and local taxes. So that's something that we're very proud of, and we're proud to be able to contribute. So it's really exciting for me to be here today, and I'm not going to get into any specifics. I know my colleagues from the industry will be, but I'll just say in general terms that I see, in terms of this continuing partnership, 3 areas, basically products, policy, and promotions. And products, I'm so glad that this summit includes not just wine, but beer and spirits, and also hard cider as well, because we're all in this together. We all are New Yorkers. We provide New York jobs. We use New York products. We sell to New Yorkers. We pay New York taxes and so forth. And so we shouldn't separate ourselves. We should come and work together as the grape and wine industry has in the past. And so it's great that we're all here. And our organization actually, in the past several years, has already been working with our colleagues in those other industries. As an example, we have an annual wine competition called the New York Wine and Food Classic. And of course, the focus is on wine. But we recently added a spirits category and a hard cider category. And we could add a beer category as well. So that basically is a way to bring us all together. We also, since 2002, our organization has organized an event in Washington, D.C. called New York Farm Day, originally hosted by former Senator Hillary Clinton, and now by Senator Gillibrand. And we basically bring New York wine, spirits, beers, and hard ciders into the Senate office building, along with Long Island seafood, fruits and vegetables, apples, cheeses, New York City restaurants, and so forth, in partnership with the New York City Restaurant Association. The whole purpose is to remind official Washington that New York is a farm state. And it has had a huge impact and is something that's really great. But again, we involve everybody. And then the third example I'll give, again, in the private sectors, is what Ginny Clark mentioned, the New York Wine and Culinary Center in Canandaigua, New York, which was really an initiative of Constellation Brands. And we quickly became the second partner, the New York Wine and Grape Foundation, Wegmans Food Markets, and then also Rochester Institute of Technology. And when you come to the New York Wine and Culinary Center, you get wine, beer, spirits, cider, and foods from across the state. So I think that those are really good examples of how we and the private sector can work together. In terms of policies, we in the industry have worked for decades very closely with the Department of Agriculture and Markets, and we never take that relationship for granted. We really appreciate Commissioner Obertine and his attitude working with us, and his colleagues before him, and so forth. We haven't worked as closely on a regular basis with Empire State Development, but when we have, it's always been very good. But in the past, there have been problems with a couple agencies in particular. One is the New York State Liquor Authority, and the other is the Department of Transportation. Since you took office, there has been a cultural shift in terms of the attitudes of those agencies. And I want to thank you on behalf of our industry. Chairman Rosen and his colleagues at the SLA have become wonderful partners in terms of communicating with us about what the laws and regulations are, what we need to do to comply, because we don't want to break any laws. Recently, with Farm Bureau and some wineries, we met with the Department of Transportation on highway signage. Which is very important to tourism, and they have come a million miles in terms of their willingness to work with us. So those types of relationships between the private sector and the public sector, just on things that don't have anything to do with money, just regulations, is something that is really very important. And then finally, I'll end up talking a little bit about promotion. We have been getting matching funds from the state of New York since 1985. We use that for 2 purposes, promotion and research. And let's not forget the research, because that is absolutely vital to our success. We are very fortunate to have one of the world's leading research institutions, Cornell University, to be able to do world-class research for us to improve the quality of our products. We're also delighted that a big part of our industry is grape juice. 2/3 of all grapes grown in New York, they go into non-fermented grape juice. And so we've promoted, to the extent that we've had money, we promote wine, grape juice, and table grapes as well. And one of our partners in all those promotions all these years has been the New York State Restaurant Association. Just got back last night from Belgium, where we were for a week, promoting New York wines from throughout the state. And by the way, there are no state dollars involved in that trip, so I just want to let you know that. And what's really, and we're going to Hong Kong in a couple of weeks, and we've been to the UK and to Germany and so forth. And what's really great about being a New Yorker is you have two advantages. One is familiarity, and two is surprise. So that when people come to our booth anywhere around the world and they say New York, they say, ah, New York. Oh yeah, I've been in New York. I've seen the Statue of Liberty. I've been to a Broadway play, and so forth. So everybody around the world knows New York. But then when they see New York wines, they say, New York wines? New York makes wine? Where do you grow the grapes? In Central Park? And so we have this way that we can connect with people, and that is the cue for us to take out the map that's on page 10 of your booklet that shows them the state of New York. And we say, okay, here is this little dot is the city, and the rest of it's a state. Niagara Falls, the Thousand Islands, Long Island, and so forth. So it's a great entree. So the final thing I will end up with is a suggestion to toss around. The most competitive wine market in the world is not Hong Kong or Berlin or the United Kingdom. It's called New York City. And we have been knocking on the door of New York City for a long time. We continue to do so with a grant from the Genesee Valley Regional Market Authority, which we are very appreciative of, and the commissioner was very supportive of that. But we need to do more. And I would like to propose a major blowout event with New York wine, beer, spirits, hard cider, and foods in one of the great restaurants of New York City, which my friend Rick Sampson from the Restaurant Association could arrange. And it would be at no cost to the state. We'll take care of getting the money. All we ask is that you, Governor, consider hosting it. And the people that we would like to come are Derek Jeter and Whoopi Goldberg and Robert De Niro. And no, very honestly, the people in the, let's think about New York City. We have the glitterati of the world. And they don't know that we have some of the best grape and wine and food products in the world as well. So let's put that together and have a huge blowout event in New York City. I know that we have the Restaurant Association working with us. I'm sure that Farm Bureau will as well, and do something that would really be over the top. So I hope that that's something we could consider, but in the meantime, I just wanted to say thank you so much from all of us for letting us be here today.
Thank you, Jim.
Thank you, Jim.
Yeah, let's give Jim a round of applause. You know, Jim, excuse me 1 second. Jim, I'm all about over the top, so I'm in whatever it is. Let me ask you this. First, the point you raised about New York City and New York State is all across the board. You know, it's an interesting paradox. You say New York, people think New York City is the image that comes to mind. That's why the Central Park, grow grapes in Central Park. They're not familiar with the rest of the state. They're really not. And you see that all through, especially the tourism world. And it's a perception that we're trying to change and actually use to our advantage, because New York City is going gangbusters in terms of tourism internationally. How do we get those tourists to see the rest of the state? You know, how do we bring them north? How do we bring them to the east? And we're working on that. Jim, what is the best state program now? What state is doing the best in terms of promoting its wine, beer, spirits industry? Is there a model for us to follow?
What other state?
What other state in the nation is doing this well, where you'd say, you know, that's a state that we could copy?
I would say probably Washington State, which is number 2. We're number 3. California is by far number 1, and Washington State is number 2, and we're number 3. And what they have, Governor, is a consistent source of funding, which comes from the industry. And by the way, I wanted to mention as well that the funds we get from the state, we match. And we are now working on a separate research and development order that's strictly private sector. But they have consistent funding year in and year out, so they can plan their promotion programs 5 years out. And they do a lot within their own state of Washington, but also they have national and worldwide distribution as well. And they have very inventive programs.
Do you have any ideas on what type of New York City-based event you would want to do, or just over-the-top event?
Well, we already have one planned, Governor, and it's for March 18th, which, so I hereby invite you and Lieutenant Governor and your commissioners as well. We did it last year, and our program in New York City is called New York Drinks New York. And we'll be happy, it's a wine program right now, we'll be happy to extend that to wine, beer, spirits, and hard cider. New York Drinks New York. We only have, our budget is $200,000, which for New York City is very little. We have a great small PR firm that has been working with us. And last March, we did a blowout event that former Commissioner Pat Hooker came to in New York City, which was for the trade and media and then consumers at a place called at the Astor Center. And both, this had never happened before. We sold out both, the consumer part of it and the trade and media part of it. So there's a huge buzz right now going on in New York City among the young consumers. And the other thing that we do in this program, not to belabor it, is we bring the New York City people out, the media and the trade, bring them to the Finger Lakes, to the Hudson Valley, to Long Island, and so forth. So it's like an exchange program. But no, we can't do every event as a blowout event, but we've never really taken advantage, I think, of the very prominent, famous New Yorkers, you know, Rachel Ray, you know, the celebrity chefs, and just all kinds of people who would probably appreciate it.
Well, let's do that. Let's do it as big as we can do it. You know, we have big venues. We can take the Javits Center.
Yep.
You're right. We have big personalities. You have all the media. So Food Channel is there. So however we can do it big, we're in.
Great. Thank you.
Thank you, Jim. The next speaker is going to be David Katletsky from the New York State Brewers Association and owner of Empire Brewing.
Thank you very much. Again, thank you for having beer to the table today. I have to start off by saying that I got involved in the beer industry in New York State, and I've been born, bred, lived here all my life. I've been involved with the beer industry for nearly 20 years. Been involved with the New York State Brewers Association, an association that we started about 8 years ago. The reason why we started the association was to really educate the consumer on our product. Oddly enough, we've kind of turned into a political watchdog over the years. But in the short time of the 20 years that I've been in business, when we first opened Empire, there were less than 10 breweries in New York State. Now there's, according to my records, over 100. And those are continuing to grow. There's a lot of nano breweries that are popping up. And I think with the new farm brewery legislation, we're going to see continued growth. But one of the things that I want to dovetail on what you had said, Governor, New York is different. It's a better New York, and it's really enjoyable to work with this administration because being a former baseball player, I often equate things to baseball terminology. I played at Siena College, and this year, beer was 5 for 5. And I'll take a 5 for 5 game any day. First and foremost, we lost our excise tax exemption, and the administration, along with us, came up with a production tax credit to offset that. It was a huge win. The brand label fee registration exemption was also, we lost that, and we figured out a way to reverse that. So that was our second win. The third hit was the small brewers bill that was passed. That's going to benefit, in my opinion, every small brewery in the state, should they need it. The fourth is a beer transportation bill. And the fifth, which I think is going to grow the economy in New York State exponentially, is the farm brewers bill. What the farm brewers bill does, it not only allows for a different type of designation, but it kind of dovetails off of the success of the wine industry. This is, for the first time, recognizing beer as an agricultural component. So now we are encouraging both hop and barley growth throughout New York State. An industry that is much needed, obviously, in brewing beer. I think there's opportunity for real estate ventures, construction opportunities, and certainly job and growth, tax growth. So I guess more than anything, thank you for listening, but more importantly, thanks for acting. In terms of opportunities to continue to take this initiative further and grow beer in New York State. And I think we can grow along with wine and distilled spirits and the ciders. I think there could be some marketing cohesiveness. What I'd like to see is a combined effort with the I Love New York folks. We've attempted to meet with them in the past, and we attempted to put together a beer trail without success. I would like to, as an organization, revisit the prospect of teaming up with I Love New York. And I'd also like to possibly tie into beverage trails that would include cider, spirits, and wine. Certainly have some road signs for beer, like I see for wine throughout the state. Another opportunity, I think, for the beer industry, for us to educate the consumer on what craft beer is, and which is a lot of these smaller breweries. We have beer festivals throughout the state. And there are some guidelines that the State Liquor Authority has put together for us. I think the guidelines may need to be revisited. There's a couple of items in there that I think if we tweak them a little bit could benefit small breweries. One in particular is at a brewing festival, breweries cannot pour beer and serve it to a customer. They could be there and represent the brand, but they can't actually give it to a customer, look the customer right in the eye and say, I made this. I'd like to revisit that. I think that we're probably...
Who pours then, David?
They're volunteers typically that don't really know what they're pouring, even though we try to educate them during the process. So I think more interaction with the consumer would be ideal. On the brand label registration side, again, with the State Liquor Authority, I would like to encourage the prospect of online applications. Right now we go through a federal process and then we go through a state process. It would be nice if we could streamline that process with an online application. I will say dealing with the State Liquor Authority has been great. Chairman, you've done an amazing job, and we look forward to continuing working with the State Liquor Authority on all of this. There's also there's a couple of permits that allow us to go out to market. One permit through the State Liquor Authority is an annual tasting permit. The tasting permit allows us to go and sample our beer among licensed facilities as well as not-for-profit markets and state fairs. This is a $1,000 fee for an annual permit. Personally, I think that's a little high, and maybe we could revisit eliminating the fee for small breweries, maybe less than 60,000 barrels. But that's something I'd like to look at. And oddly enough, there is a brewer off-premise permit for fairs markets where we can sell, and that permit's for free. So I think maybe some cohesiveness between those two. I also would like to continue to enforce fair trade laws with distributors and license holders, and I'll leave it at that. And also, I would like to get some state guidance for national distribution and international exporting. When I travel abroad, everyone knows New York. And I think having New York State beer in foreign lands, especially China and possibly Korea, would be exceptional. And I met with Diana Lopez in New York, and we spoke of that in detail. And I think that a lot of New York State breweries are poised for exportation. So something there would be great. I also, on a personal level, I want to talk about my business, Empire Brewing Company. In 2007, I purposely changed our business model. And the business model was that I wanted to buy local. The first thing I did is went to a local power authority, Blue Rock Energy, and I challenged them to find all New York State produced renewable energy, something that didn't exist that I was aware of. And they did. And to my knowledge, we were one of the first companies in New York State to go all New York State produced renewable energy. The second thing I did is started partnering up with local farmers. Some farmers couldn't afford to give us the food that we needed because we're a restaurant and a brewery. So we started investing in cattle. We started investing in lamb, in cheese making, and the next thing you know, we have 60 partners. The point of my story is we were the second company in Central New York to receive the Slow Food Snail of Approval Award. My purpose, our business is seeing double-digit growth. Last year, same business, same location, 30% growth. The year before, 31% growth. The year before that, 28% growth. And I attribute it to our partnership in buying local. The local thing works. And if we could get other restaurants across New York State to do the same, everyone's going to win. In closing, I noticed on page 4 of the handout, and this is just interesting, that according to the Beer Institute in Washington, D.C., which is the barometer, does all of our statistics for the beer industry, beer ranks number 4 nationally in sales in New York State, and that's phenomenal. But what I found out this morning from the gentleman that puts all the statistics together, his name is Lester Jones, that oddly enough, the state capita consumption of beer ranking ranks New York State, and we're up 1 from last year, 49th. And last year we were 50th, right next to Utah, which I found interesting.
No political comment in that, though.
I just found that interesting. I had to throw it out there.
Thank you very much, David.
Thank you.
Thank you, David.
Our next speaker is Carlo DeVito from Hudson Valley Wine Country.
Yes, again, thank you very much for having us today. I'm in the Hudson Valley. We have a very diverse group. We have a number of artisanal cider makers, wineries. We have a number of distilleries, and of course, we have we make the most amount of artisanal cassis in North America. So we're very pleased and happy to be here. I think there's a lot of things I've heard already that I like. I certainly laud Jim's idea of involving you in the New York Drinks New York promotion. That's been a very successful promotion, and I think that any time that the governor would join in helping us to promote wine, beers, and spirits, I think that's a very important thing. I think seeing the governor saying "Drink New York" is a big thing, and I think that would help promote our businesses. Jim also pointed out Washington State as a model. I think they are a very good model. I think they also have a very interesting wine promotion with the restaurant industry there, and I think that's something worth looking at and emulating. I also do think that Virginia's had some interesting ideas as well. I would laud Virginia as well. I do have some very specific ideas about some of the things that are going on. The first is with respect to the NYSLA. For wineries making less than 5,000 cases, I'd really like to see the MT40s and a number of the paperwork that becomes very onerous, especially for a small winery. I can see where bigger wineries might be much more important. But for wineries doing less than 5,000 cases, reducing the monthly filings to maybe twice yearly, I think would be much more doable and much more it's just easier for everybody involved, I think, and reduce the drag on the NYSLA as well. I would like to see the farm bill passed that encompasses farm stands selling wines locally. There was a bill put forth by Senator Larkin, 4241, which allows farm stands to sell wine from wineries within a 20-mile radius. I think especially in agricultural regions like the Finger Lakes, the Hudson Valley, Niagara, that would increase the number of places that wineries could sell their wares. And again, as an agricultural product, that fits very well. There's also a law that I thought would be a very good law, which is the 4533 from Carlucci, which allows for wineries to make wine for home winemakers. Again, I think that this is a very simple and easy bill. It would allow wineries to make use of very expensive machinery and materials during down periods when they could help home winemakers make product for themselves and allow those fees to also be useful to wineries. One of the things that has become a bit of a bailiwick has been the New York State Fair. Apparently they sell California wines and other wines. We'd like to see, certainly a number of people in my area would like to see the New York State Fair sell New York wines, beers, and spirits at the State Fair, as well as New York State Racing Association facilities. Again, promoting New York State wine, grape, and spirits. These seem like easy victories, and would like to see those things go as well. I do laud what you were saying earlier about being able to pour beers and spirits, being part of the Hudson Berkshire Beverage Trail. We have wineries, distilleries, and breweries. If we wanted to have a festival, as we're trying to plan, not all of our members can pour and taste at that festival or sell at that festival. Kind of makes having a beverage trail difficult when you can't have a festival to celebrate all the people that are within that trail. I think one of the other things that I've noticed in talking to other people who have interstate beverage trails is that when we hold a festival or an event, it's very difficult to see. If you can get somebody, for example, in Niagara, if they were to hold a Niagara Trail event, the wineries from Pennsylvania that are part of this very large trail cannot pour at a New York State event. So the question is, how can we facilitate something like that, even on a one-time basis per year, what have you, which would allow people who like some of these other wineries to come into New York State and get the revenue from that as well. So I think those are some of the very sort of simple ideas that I would bring to the table in that. And again, promoting, partnering more with I Love New York. I'd love to see I Love New York push our regions as tourist regions. I think the best example of it so far has been the Finger Lakes, but we'd like to see I Love New York really embrace the other wine regions in the same way.
Great. Thank you. Well said.
And now I'd like to ask Elizabeth Ryan from Breezy Hill Orchard and Cider Mill. Thank you, Elizabeth.
Hello, Governor.
Hello, Elizabeth.
Thank you for having me. As you heard before, I'm here wearing a couple of hats. I represent a very large industry, apple growers. New York State is the second largest apple producer in the United States. It's amazing. And our growers do struggle. They struggle with low on-farm prices. They struggle with the weather. And I'm also representing the reemergence of an artisanal cider industry in the state of New York. So we've heard a lot of themes this morning. I have a lot of resonance with what my previous speakers have said. And I want to thank you for bringing the apple growers and the cider makers to the table. We are, in fact, right now, as cider makers, a very small industry in a very rapidly growing field. And we've heard some themes this morning. We've heard the theme of growth, opportunity, entrepreneurship, job retention, job creation, and farmland preservation. I'd like to put that in the mix. We've heard from you, Governor, about streamlining government. And I, too, would like to say how grateful I am for the process of streamlining that has already occurred. But there is room for perhaps some additional streamlining. I am also a founder of New York City's Green Market, so I spend a lot of my time on the farm, and I spend a lot of my time actually selling in 18 farmers markets, most of them in the streets of New York City. And I can tell you that New York is certainly one of the most sought-after markets in the world. It is highly competitive, and as this industry grows, we need to make sure that our New York State producers and processors have a piece of the pie. And I can tell you that right now, most of the cider that's being consumed in New York City is not from New York State. A great deal of it is imported, and some of it is actually made from concentrate from offshore. And I learned something this morning that I thought was a very interesting reflection on, in terms of where the cider market is going. The Wall Street Journal did a story, its second hard cider story last week, and they cited growth in the industry at 50%, which is rather remarkable. I learned this morning that our near neighbor, Woodchuck Cider, the fourth largest producer in the country, was just acquired, just yesterday, for $304 million. Our near neighbor, just over the border. And they will rapidly be the second largest producer in the United States, I believe. So it's important that, and very few of those apples come from New York State. So we have a real opportunity here, Governor, and it's wonderful that you're embracing it. And I also have to thank the Empire State Development Corp., which is really pushing our growers and our cider makers to see this opportunity to provide technical support and also access to capital that we very badly need to grow this industry. On the regulatory front, you said yourself, we have a set of archaic regulations. There's a great deal of confusion. Your agency folks are fantastic. They're working with some constraints, and the theme that I heard as I talked to other cider makers is simply confusion, gray areas, rules that people don't understand. Often even in the agencies, people have to work very, very hard simply to interpret the rules that they are trying to enforce. We've had a lot of support from the SLA. We've had a lot of support from taxation. We have some definitional issues with cider. Cider straddles two categories. On one hand, we look a lot like beer, and on the other hand, we look a lot like wine. We feel that we are our own unique category. If you look at England or France or some of the other major cider-producing regions of the world, these are wonderful beverages that stand on their own two legs, and we would like to see the state recognize that. We would like to see the rules in New York State reflect the practical realities of our marketplace. And there are a couple of particular problems that we think need to be addressed. Some of them have to be addressed at the state level, and some of them actually may require being addressed at the federal level, and we're not here to discuss that. But we would like to encourage you to, in a thoughtful yet timely fashion, meet with us so that we can really drill down and look at these rules. And they relate to definitions, they relate to licensing, they relate to distribution. And all of that process is often for cider very, very confused and often problematic. So I don't want to take more than my 3 minutes. We are completely available to you to facilitate this process, and I want to thank you again for giving us a seat at the table.
Thank you. Thank you, Elizabeth. Thank you very much.
Now we're going to ask Ralph and Renzo from the New York Craft Distillers Guild and Tuthill Town Distillery. Well,
Governor, I'd like to thank you very much for including New York's 28 farm distilleries that have opened in just the last 4 years, for including us in this discussion today. As you know, farm distilling is a relatively new undertaking in New York, and we spend a lot of time discussing with our neighbors that it is actually a farm activity. We are partners with a lot of the growers around us who grow our grains for us, and in order to ensure that it is a New York farm product, we take responsibility for that crop when it goes in the ground. So we are actually increasing the opportunities for our local farmers who, by the way, are thrilled not to have to grow, excuse me, Elizabeth, apples, and would rather be growing our rye in their fields. But the fact is that the reason we got into this business in the first place was that we were getting tired of watching all the apple orchards get sold off to developers for housing. And we did a little bit of calculation and figured out that if you made brandy from those apples rather than cider, you would be increasing the value of those apples 8-fold. And we then turned to whiskey. And now, just in the last few years, 28 new farm distilleries have opened up as a result of the passage of the Farm Distillery Act. And at least half of those farm distilleries are in Brooklyn. And they are also buying their grains and their fruit from New York farmers. So this is to make the point that distilling is an agricultural undertaking. And we proudly put on our cards Tuttletown Spirits Farm Distillery. A couple of the things that are sort of on our list from our nascent New York Craft Distillers Guild include perhaps the benefit of being able in regulatory side to allow breweries, wineries, and distilleries to hold multiple licenses in the same facility. And the main reason for that is that a brewery and a winery are doing the exact same thing that a distillery is doing right up until the moment we put our goods in the still. And so it makes sense for a brewery to install a still, if they can afford it, and be producing some sort of spirit from the beer that turns, or in a winery, if their winery turns a little bit, that wine can be made into a fine brandy. So rather than waste crops, we'd like to see the opportunity for those producers to actually produce more than one product. The other very critical thing is, and thank you very much for signing the bill that allows us now to bring our spirits to farmers markets, state fairs, and county fairs. There are other opportunities which farm distillers have for sampling goods, but they are prohibited in those opportunities from selling their goods. And that's a real shortcoming, because it's one thing to have somebody taste something, they say, well, can I buy that bottle? And you can't sell it to them. You have to say, no, you have to go to your local liquor store and buy it there. It's a very unique opportunity when you have the customer in front of you, as David pointed out, to be able to say, I made this, and it's made in New York. And I agree also with Jim's observation that when you go over to Europe, people know New York and they know New York City, but they are surprised as can be that we're actually making whiskey. And they are surprised as well to learn that New York was one of the greatest whiskey-producing states in the U.S. before Prohibition killed it. And not only killed the spirits industry, but also killed the cooperage industry, and also a lot of barley growers and malters stopped working. Which brings me actually to the next subject, and that is, we would like to see the state take an effort in supporting the development of 2 New York State grain depots and malting facilities to service the distilleries and the farm breweries. As I understand it, the farm breweries are going to be required in a number of years to be using 90% New York-produced grains. That would be impossible under the current situation, because there is nobody malting barley on that level in New York. And the Department of Agriculture and the Empire State Development Organization, as well as Glenwood Farms and downstate, are all promoting the reestablishment of New York's grain-growing industry. I can speak from personal experience that, as I said, our apple growers are thrilled to be putting rye in. And we think that that whole effort to increase barley growth and rye growth and wheat growth in New York will be enhanced enormously if those growers have a central location to send their grains and have them malted for the use by the brewers and the other farm distillers in the state. On the state and international level, one of the things that we are struggling against constantly is the fact that we're the new kids on the block. And the law is very old and very arcane. And with the help of Commissioner Rosen and Chairman Rosen and the State Liquor Authority, and both of you, I'd like to thank you very much for the change, the noticeable change, has been mentioned before, in the attitude of the State Liquor Authority, which has been extremely forthcoming in the last couple of years, and it is a substantial change from when we started 9 years ago, when I was told by the then Commissioner of the State Liquor Authority that he considered spirits producers to be legal drug dealers in the state of New York. But that attitude has completely changed, and we are in regular communication with the State Liquor Authority now, and very grateful for their open ears and their help. There were 2 other items that we thought might be very helpful for the state, and one of them is the promotion, along with a malting facility and grain depot, would be a mobile bottling facility. These are used in California all the time. They go to the small wineries, small breweries, and small distilleries, and they can knock off 30,000 bottles in a day. And I can tell you that bottling is a real, excuse the expression, bottleneck in our business, because a bottling line is an expensive thing to have. We are also very interested in being a part, an active part, in the I Love New York campaign. Our small distillery has a shop that's about 400 square feet. Until the passage of the Farm Distillery Law, we were unable to sell our spirits or do sampling at the distillery, as every brewery and winery could do in the state. We then, as a matter of, because of that, we could not have a shop, because tourists were just in the way if they weren't buying anything. But since the passage of the Farm Distillery Law, our retail business and the sales tax we have collected has doubled every single year, Last year, it was $500,000 worth of sales out of our little shop, and we do no advertising at all. And our tourism business is through the roof. So we'd like to join that community by being part of the I Love New York campaign as a serious investor in that opportunity. We'd also like to see on the regulatory side, if possible, we'd like to see reconsideration of the brand label registration fees and process. We also must go through the federal label approval process and then through the mail label process at the state level. And we pay a registration fee annually of $250 per brand. Now, in our opinion, this discourages the farm distiller from coming out with a wider variety of products, and it limits their output. We see that as also hampering the ability of New York farmers to create more raw materials for them. We also would like to see, if it's possible, and we realize that part of the problem is that a lot of the changes in alcohol law are statutory changes. They take a long time to get into effect. The farm distillery bill took over a year to get passed, and that delayed the opening of those 28 distilleries by over a year, and it delayed the state collecting excise tax on all of those spirits they're making for that same period of time. So we'd like to see a way for that to be shortened a little bit somehow, and perhaps more of the promulgation of regulations be handed to the state liquor authority rather than being made a statutory part of the law. And that will allow the state liquor authority to react more quickly to the changing marketplace and to the needs of the licensees. We'd also like to suggest that maybe the licensing procedures in the distillery license section of the law be revisited. Many of the distillers feel that there is no need for 5 or 6 different distillery licenses since mostly they do the same thing. And we'd like to suggest that we have 2 licenses, a farm distillery license and a plain distillery license, and that their permits, the fees could be adjusted according to the gross volume they produce rather than what they produce. So as a group, and I'd like to speak for all of us, and thank you for the efforts that have been made by your office and by the State Liquor Authority to make life a little easier for us. We're trying to catch up, and there's a long road to go yet, but I know that speaking for the other distillers, we're all eager to get there and eager to be selling New York-made spirits.
Great. Thank you very much. Well done.
Now we're going to hear from Oscar Vizcarra, who's the owner of Becker Brewing and Malting Company and Vizcarra Vineyards.
Thank you, Governor, for inviting me and members of the Llanera Wine Trail. I'm honored to be here, and congratulations for having this Wine and Beer Summit. My farm is located in Llanera County. I own an agrotourism business. We do pony rides, hay rides. We have 10 acres of parking to accommodate the tourists for the fall. We have a winery, a brewery, and soon to have a cidery. Just to continue with the beer consumptions, we are the largest seller of microbrew beers in Llanera County for the September-October month. The other one that competes with me is the Buffalo Bills in Erie County. That's the little secrets going on in Western New York, just so you know. I'm also the largest employer in my rural town of Harlan. We hire high school, college, retirees, 80 to 100 people per year. We always believe that agriculture and tourism work together. And after 32 years, we're beginning to reap the benefits of tourism. My farm is a diverse business. I grow vegetables, fruit, grapes for wine. However, we need to have a synergy between our licenses, as you explained. Why can we share staff, building, and equipment with one license? My son, as we speak, is in China trying to market our apple wine. why can we sell apples and apple wine in the same building? I guarantee we'll sell much faster and we have higher production. We cannot do that under the present regulations. Right now, the licensing structure is confusing. The farm brewery license should be modeled like the winery license. However, we have made some progress, I must say. A few years ago, 4 or 5 years ago, we had a tremendous problem with rules and regulations. We could not understand where can we put a building, where can we put a bar. In the last few years, maybe since you mentioned, as you got to be governor, things have changed. Also, the liquor authority has changed. We feel that they have streamlined regulations. I feel that they have little flexibility. And I feel like they seem to understand how agriculture works. And I noticed that Mr. Rosen is here. I want to thank you for understanding that flexibility. I also want to take this opportunity to thank Mr. Jim Treesize for the work that he has done on behalf of the trails. And I certainly in Era County have benefited by his support. Governor Cuomo, thank you for recognizing tourism and agriculture. You understand that they're key drivers of our local economy. I am the example of that. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much.
We're now going to hear from Nick Matt from Matt Brewing. When I joined the regional council, and maybe Lieutenant Governor Duffy will remember this, I stood up and I said that he had asked the question of what we could do in New York to help business. And I said I wished that New York supported New York products the way other states do. And if you drive across the border to Vermont and go into a bar in Vermont, you will find that that bar is probably pouring at least 50% of the beers on tap are made in Vermont. They're proud to pour them. They're proud to support them. You can go into hundreds of places in New York State, and you'll find maybe 1 or 2 beers. I guess Steve McCormick's probably beers there, Budweiser, but you may find 1 or 2 beers that are made in New York State. They may have 10 or 12 halves. And I know that isn't something we can change overnight, but let me give you a couple of other examples where this happens, where I think New York State could be very helpful. I was at the Saratoga racetrack this year, and in the clubhouse, if you order a beer made from New York, aside from Budweiser, you will struggle. You could go out to the stands and find a Saranac there, and I was pleased to do that, and probably did it more times than I should have, but in any case, I guess I asked the question, well, why aren't there more New York products there? And I'm probably speaking for wine as well. I didn't ask for that because I wouldn't have drank that. But, you know, if we introduce, and I know that's a pay-to-play, and that makes the economics of the racetrack work, but if all of those people who went to the racetrack for the month of August walked out of there having tasted a New York beer or a New York wine and said, wow, that was really good. You know, maybe I ought to start buying more of that. I think this state we'd probably end up all hiring some more people, et cetera, et cetera. I'm sure that's true in a number of venues, and let me take the New York State Fair as probably the one that's maybe most annoying. You would think when you go there, you are in the fair for either Ontario, Canada, Colorado, or Pennsylvania by what beer is offered in all of the stands. Now, I understand, again, that can't be dictated, but it would seem like this is the State Fair of New York. We ought to be demonstrating our products, not products from around the rest of the United States.
I would just like to comment and support the notion that's been suggested by David and others. This beer and wine trail concept, I think, is a great one, and I'm not sure the wine people would necessarily love having their brewery brethren join them, but it would make sense because regionally there would be a lot more breweries and wineries together, and so that the trail would make sense, whereas there may be spread out another way, and I think that would be a great addition. And the other thing I wanted to just bring you up to date on and share with other people, we have undertaken a project in the past year that's called an anaerobic digester, and we are about to do this, put this online. It is basically what we're going to take is our wastewater out of the brewery, and we have anywhere from, depending upon the day, 100 to 200,000 gallons of wastewater that come out of the brewery. We'll take that wastewater and we will clean up the BOD that's in the water, about 80%, through this process called anaerobic digestion, and which takes a tremendous load off of the sewer system, our local sewer system, which, for those of you who live in places that have sewer system issues, that is an issue. So we're helping with that part of it, and we're going to take that wastewater and use it to generate methane gas. We will generate, we estimate, between 1/3 and 40% of the power electrical requirements of the brewery. So it's a pretty good project. We have been supported by NYSERDA with the project. We've also been supported from National Grid, and there's a federal program that supports this as well. And it is, I know you've expressed some interest in this kind of thing. It accomplishes a couple of things pretty directly in terms of helping with wastewater, but also generating renewable energy off of all places what you would not think, the wastewater coming out of the plant. And I think that has applications to breweries, certainly wineries, and I suspect distilleries as well. So it's expensive, but there may be some opportunities across the state for combined effort on that, and I'd certainly be happy to share any information with you to help you with that. So that's what I wanted to offer.
Thank you.
Great.
Thank you.
Thank you. Our last speaker before we open up to the rest of the panel here for questions and answers is Dean Norton from the New York State Farm Bureau.
Thank you, Governor. I appreciate the opportunity to again be at one of your summits. Hopefully we can get the wine and the cheese together and have a good time someday. I think, as we all aware, New York has a long history with the grape and fruit industry. If you look back to the 70s when we decided to do the farm winery license, and from where we've come from 1985 till today, it's truly extraordinary. I'm happy to be able to be part of that, and glad that your administration has seen that as an industry to make sure we move forward. As I mentioned earlier, thank you for your commitments that you made during the Yogurt Summit. I hope everyone that's here is hearing me, but what you said, you've done, you stuck by your word, and I appreciate that, and that means volumes to my membership. I don't want this to be an all-out love fest for Chairman Rosen, but it seems it's going that way. But I will say that it used to be, when we talked to folks at the State Liquor Authority, that they were more problem makers than problem solvers, and I appreciate that the attitude that they have now, and it's more of let's solve the issue instead of make it an issue. So thank you, Chairman Rosen, for your leadership there. New York is the third largest grape growing state in the country. 2/3 of those grapes go to making products such as grape juice and jams at our Welch's facilities. The other third goes to wine. Our newest crop is probably going to be hops, thanks to the leadership that you provided in the farm brewery license. I appreciate that. We look forward to working with you to make sure that we get that implemented and that we can take advantage of those opportunities for hops and rye and wheat and barley. So let's move to the business climate. You have made it a point of your administration to make this New York works climate, and we appreciate that. In the agricultural industry, there's some issues that I'd like to bring to your attention. One of the largest resources that we have in agriculture is our land. Currently, the average cost for taxes in the state of New York is $26.21. The national average is $6.75 per acre. So we've got a ways to go to get to the average. payroll costs. Thanks to our friends at Farm Credit, they have done a study of payroll costs across the country, and they looked at the top 10 agricultural states, which I'm sad to say New York is 27th, not in the top 10. But when you look at the payroll costs across the country, New York is second to California. And California is our largest agricultural state in the country. So just to put that in perspective as far as costs for us to get the crops to market. As I'm talking about taxes and so forth, in agriculture we have an agricultural assessment when it comes to our real estate, and there's a formula and evaluation for that. About 5 years ago, farmers had the possibility of seeing our taxes increase 34% because of the valuation formula. We were able to work with our friends in the legislature, Mr. McGee and Mr. Albertine at the time, and we were able to change the formula so that it didn't go up to any more than 10%. You and your leadership, 2 years ago, you passed a 2% tax cap. Well, agriculture still has the 10% cap. So I would hope that we could work to find a way to make the valuation formula for agricultural assessments in line with the 2% cap that you passed 2 years ago for everyone else. That would make it a lot more feasible and equitable for us, for farmers who are the largest landowners across the country, across the state and country. Let's talk about trade, if we would, for a minute. We talked about tourism, trade with our friends in Canada. There's an imbalance there. If we have friends come across from Canada to tour our wineries in the Finger Lakes or in the Niagara Wine Trail or up along the Thousand Islands, if those folks want to take that bottle of wine back home, they have to pay an excise tax of upwards of 45% just to take it home. We have had conversations with your administration and your staff down in D.C. about this. I know that they've talked with the U.S. Trade Rep's office, and I wish we could say it's an issue with the Canadian government, but they'll punt it to the provincial government, say it's a provincial tax, not a Canadian tax. I'm hopeful that with Canada entering the TPP negotiations, which is the Trans-Pacific Partnership, that we'll see some of these issues brought to the forefront and will be a more equitable playing field for those folks that want to take our wines back across the border. Because I know when we go to Canada, the tax coming across is not 47%. And I appreciate your help in making that happen. And to bring that point to bear, the Dyson School at Cornell, Professor Perla and Rickards just did a study, and if we can get that playing field level, it's a $20 million increase to our industry. And again, I would just ask, when it comes to research, it's important for agriculture, it's important for the dairy industry, as we spoke during the Yogurt Summit, it's important for the wine, beer, and spirits industry too. We have a great research facility in Geneva, and I know that they would love to be able to do research for this industry and move the industry forward. So anything we can do to make sure we get the appropriate funding to the experiment station would be appreciated. And just appreciate the leadership that you and your administration have shown and the willingness to sit down and listen to us as an industry. It's a very broad industry, whether you're talking beer, wine, and spirits, you're talking grape growers, apple growers, dairy farmers, or grain farmers. You've taken the time to sit down and listen to us, and I appreciate that, and thank you very much.
Thank you, Dean. Thank you very much. Dean was the last speaker, the prepared speaker. Let me just ask the Senator Ritchie and Assemblyman McGee if you'd like to make any comments at this point.
I would just like to thank you, Governor, for holding this and putting the players of the industry together to meet directly with your cabinet. For the last 2 years, I've been around my district along with Western New York and Long Island wineries, and one of the things I hear from them on a regular basis is we want to grow our business, so anything that you can do to help get New York out of the way would be something that would help us immensely. So to put all these people in this room and to hear directly their comments, I think just shows your commitment to agriculture as a whole. And I know they appreciate it, and as the Ag Chair, I appreciate it also. So I just like the opportunity to sit here and hear the comments, and thank you for the invitation.
Great. Thanks for being here, Senator. Thank you very much. Assemblyman McGee?
Yes, Governor. And thank you, Governor, for putting this on, and the yogurt one, too, was a great move in the right direction to help agriculture in New York, which has been one of my priorities for the number of years that I've served here in the State Assembly. And I appreciate listening to the comments that are being made by representatives of all the industry, or all of the wine, beer, and spirits, so on. And I think there's some real opportunities. I've seen it again in my time here in the State Assembly. I've seen the opportunities, the growth that's taken place in these areas, and I think it's wonderful that we're looking at doing more. One thing in particular was back many years ago when hops left New York because of a disease, they're now coming back, and I think there's a tremendous potential for hops growing in New York, and that farm bill that we did this past year has been is going to be a major help in moving in that direction to create another farm product in hops. So again, I thank you, and it's great, this kind of a forum, and look forward to more comments.
Great. Thank you. Thank you, Assemblyman. Anyone have any comments on what they've heard? Questions?
Winery at Margin Manor. I also did want to mention the Pride of New York program. I actually put that on my wine capsules as one of my promotional materials. But I'd like to go back to something Jim Treisay said, and we've heard about the wine trails and the wine and grape trails. In our winery, I like to say I have two businesses. I have my winery where I'm queen, but I'm also part of the Niagara Wine Trail where we partner together. And we've been working with DOT. I was one of the people who helped develop some of the new things, and I really appreciate the efforts between the meetings and the emails and the phone calls to develop some understanding about wine trail signage. Now on page 16 of your book, you mentioned the Niagara Wine Trail and our signage. However, we, along with other wine trails, are having a challenge in expanding our wine trail. We really would like this to go forward. We have grown from 2 to 8 to 16 wineries. We have 2 wineries asking to join, 3 more in process, but expanding our wine trail is a challenge at getting it through the different legislative processes. And we're wondering if there's a way we can work with DOT to expand that, and instead of working with the legislative process, or find some other venue to do that. But we would like to keep expanding our wine trail. We're getting ready to print our brochure and put $200,000 into the economy and advertising dollars. And we would like to get our trail expanded before we do that. So I thank you for all your help. I do have it written for you at the end of the evening. And cheers.
Thank you. Thank you very much. There is a lot here on you've all touched on it this morning, the connection between the wine industry, beer distillery, and tourism. The trails are the most obvious connection, and that's been done well. I agree it can be done better. But the tourism meets agriculture, meets manufacturing, that connection. It's DOT on the signage, it's ESDC and the I Love New York campaign, which all has to be brought together. And we haven't done that as well as we should, in my opinion. And that's going to be the part of what I leave here today with, making that connection and make it quickly. Because the trails, again, getting tourists up from New York City, advertising the rest of New York State, if you will. The trails are a great medium to do that. They've been working very well. And we haven't even put the effort behind it that I think we can put behind it. But it's DOT, ESDC, and then the trails themselves. We're also redoing the tourism effort for the state. There are regional tourism councils that work plus or minus depending on where you are in the state. But in some ways, these regional tourism councils wind up competing with each other because there's no coordination. And sometimes we're trying to compete for the same tourism dollar from the neighboring region. So we need to bring them into the fold also.
Expanded, and that's
Yes.
the challenge that we
Yes.
have right now, is getting that done. because we have wineries asking to join that are farther than the 5-mile limit we currently have on expanding.
You are-
So if
you
there's
are-
a way that we can get that legislation pushed through, it would really be helpful for our investment, our economic investment in our
Yes,
area.
and you are right. Many of the wine trails are actually written into law,
Right.
surprisingly enough.
Yes.
You would think it was left to a regulation, but they're literally written into the law, what's in the trail, what's not in the
Right.
trail, so you need legislation.
Right.
And it's always a pleasure to go through the legislative process.
I understand.
I don't want anyone to, I love doing it. I just love, so, my partners in the legislature, it's a pleasant process.
Well, we're halfway there. We've gotten it through one house. We needed to get it through the other.
Yeah, I know, it's always we're always halfway there. And it's always the other half that's a problem.
Of course.
Mark Murphy, you had a point?
Well, I wanted to just say, with as far as the Restaurant Association, we're here to help all of you promote your product throughout at least, with all of our members. We obviously want New York to grow. We do this not just with wine. We also want to talk about, we talk about food, Hudson Valley, ducks and all that other stuff. There's so many different things that we can promote through our association. I think that, we do a show every year in New York City, and I think it would be a great way to sort of try to tie in. I think Rick might have something to say on that.
Yes. Again, Governor, thanks for having us here. One of the things that we've been doing for years, and really in conjunction with our partners, the New York Wine and Grape Foundation, that's how we started to partner, which is working. And one of the frustrations that they have is getting wines recognized in restaurants. And it is. It's a struggle. One of the things that we have done over the years with the Wine and Grape Foundation, and thanks to your father at the time, was promote New York wines through New York restaurants. We've done statewide programs, New York City, where we were taking wines and pairing them with New York foods, which has absolutely been a tremendous success. But it is educating those individuals running these restaurants that New York wines, beers, and now our new family members, spirits, are first-class products. And it's getting that message back to them. And one of the ways we've been doing it is education. Having them taste the product, having them put it on the menu, because what we've noticed, I've been with this organization 37 years, and the changes that I've seen in the consumer. You have an educated consumer today. They know what they like. They know what they want. And when they come into restaurants in New York City or upstate, they want local products. That's the drive today. And I have to admit, it's embarrassing to go in some restaurants that are in wine country, and there's not a New York wine listing. And that has to change. And I think we are certainly that vehicle to do that, because when the funds were there, the marketing to promotion, it made a big impact on educating our people. And the bottom line is, once our people are educated in serving it, then it obviously trickles down to the consumer, and then the consumer enters into the liquor store and purchases those products. And what Mark said earlier, we do an annual trade show at the Javits Center in March. It's the second largest restaurant food show in the country. We take approximately 5,000 square feet. We put that aside for New York products such as the wines. We do an event with part of New York there, and we feel that's a great venue, not only for the association, because you have 30,000 restaurant people walking through there in 3 days. It gives a good display of New York products. And a little earlier, you were talking about doing something in conjunction with the event, Jim, that you're going to be doing in the city. It would be great to wrap this around somehow where you have a captive audience of almost 30,000 people, and they are the buyers in the industry. So that's why we're here, Governor, to certainly lend our support. We are 64,000 restaurants in the state of New York, 504,000 employees, second New York, next to government, and we're a $27 billion industry. So we do play a very big part in the state of New York, and we want to certainly partner with New York to grow it. So that's why we're here.
On the comparison, Rick, restaurants, second government is first, except government is shrinking and you're growing, right? Which is a good thing. But we really need you guys, I think you're key to this conversation, because the largest, I think the single largest market for an immediate quick boost would be if that New York City restaurant and New York State restaurants really started purchasing New York products. And everybody gets it, and everybody says it, and it's buy local, et cetera, and we have the product, we have the quality, we have the price, we have the delivery. It's just, not happening at the rate that it should happen. So if you can take the efforts that we've done in the past, and how do we put them on steroids, and how do we get more creative and just really put energy into developing that relationship? And we'll do it however you say. I just don't know enough about how the purchases work, when do they come together, how do we get to them. But if you come up with a program, we'll follow it.
That's great. Thank you so much.
There's also in New York, there's so many amazing chefs, obviously we know on the Food Network, that have a great amount of presence and can really get the word out. If we can somehow work together in getting New York City or New York State chefs to really start promoting the product would be a really wonderful thing as well, in conjunction with I Love New York or, everything New York. I think it would be really cool.
Well, let's think how to do that.
Follow up on Rick's comments, Governor. New York City market is a huge potential, and we have over 11,000 licensed premises in the city of New York, licensed to sell beer, wine, or alcohol. It's over 40% of the entire state's licensees. As far as revenue, it's probably well over 50%. We're buying more than $1 billion worth of alcohol products just in the city of New York, on an annual basis. So the potential is huge. I was in, but on the other hand, I was in the Berkshires for a weekend with my wife recently, and going to two fine restaurants there. It's a virtual geographic tour, the menu of every local farm, which every piece of grass or everything in your salad or food came from. We just really don't see that in New York. I will commit to you that our new Hospitality Alliance, which does represent, I said, all aspects of the industry, from distribution to consumption, hotels to bars. We're going to go back to the membership and ask them, why are they not buying more New York State, alcohol products? And then we'll get back to Ken and to your staff with what their answers are. Is it a distribution issue? Is it a price point? New York City market, well, it's huge, is very price competitive. Are we doing enough statewide to reduce the cost of these fine people so that their product, while it may be as good or better quality, is price competitive, for the consumer in the city of New York? But we have over 50, talk about tourism, over 51 million tourists from around the country and around the world came to New York City last year. And every survey they cite going out to restaurants and nightlife is one of the main reasons why they're coming to New York. That's not to mention the 8 million residents and the millions of workers who are there, going out, after work. So we're committed in the Hospitality Alliance to try to get you some answers, because this is a very interesting question, and it should be a problem that we can solve together.
Great. John?
I'd like to put in 2 cents for research. As Jim mentioned earlier, we have probably the greatest research institution in Cornell. And I'm a past chair of a national organization called National Grape and Wine Initiative, whose goal is to, what is the research that the grape community, and that's all grape products, needs, who can do it best, and where's the money? And at Cornell, or in the East, our friends from California are a little chagrined because Dr. Tim Martinson got a grant for cold climate viticulture, which helps our growers in the North Country as well as across the northern tier of states. Dr. Lance Cadle-Davidson and Bruce Reich from Cornell again have received an SCRI grant to look for markers in the breeding process so it can speed the breeding process. This isn't GMOs or anything like that. It's just looking what do we see in powdery mildew resistant vines that we don't see anywhere else. Let's look for that marker, throw the others out, and continue. And the Finger Lakes Community College, which Paul Brock is on the faculty of, has set up a viticulture and enology
training program, two-year degree, that we have interns from there. We've hired one person full-time that's come out of that program, and we've provided some land for a research and training vineyard so that the students can come and chop up their own vines and not have to go into commercial vineyards to do it. So it's important that we recognize the value of research and that it's supported by the state continually. I know it's, as money gets tight, it seems like here's a place where we ought to cut, but I'd
No, I agree.
suggest.
Point well taken, John.
Here we have time for two more speakers. So,
Along those lines, John, thank you again. The piece of land that they provided us at Martini Vineyards, Anthony Road Wine Company, is allowing our students to learn on actual vines where we don't have to influence the production of real commercial wineries. That being said, we share the vineyard with Cornell Cooperative Extension, and it came from a government grant through the Genesee Valley Regional Marketing Authority, and we appreciate that funding. Along the same lines, as an industry, we all have to be concerned with who is making these products. This is not a take it out of the ground and put it in a bottle type of industry. It's not that simple. There's a lot of science behind it, and there's a lot of need for education for the people who want to do it. As the industry grows, there is a tremendous amount of need for workers, both for pouring, but also for production. And the program at Finger Lakes Community College is at the ground level there, where we're a two-year degree program. It's simply focused on getting people prepared to either grow grapes or make wine at some level, whether that be at a support level, or I've got several students that have several advanced degrees that are trying to go on to a new career. And some of them are perfectly capable of doing what a lot of people in this room have done, is become part of this industry as a new entity. We are viticulture and wine technology, but as I mentioned before, there's a huge interest in learning about beer making and spirits. In order to do that properly, in order to get the quality goods that we all want to be known for, requires an amount of education. We all have to get behind that. We have to support the people who want to be in our industry through internships and, of course, through government funding. FLCC, through the work of State Senator Nozzolio and Assemblyman Kolb, got into the budget at the last minute this year for a, we're calling the Viticulture Center, which will primarily be where we're training people how to make wine. Along those lines, we're working with the SLA to make sure we do that, legally. But as an educational institute, as a product of Cornell myself, I know that there is a long list of reasons why, as an educational institute, it's odd to have to get a license that says we are a producer, where we're just trying to teach people how to do this. So, I appreciate the help with the SLA that we've had, and they've been great to work with, but we've always got to ask, is there a better way? Cornell Cooperative Extension has been a huge supporter of my program. Cornell in general, the faculty there has been huge. And as a unit, we hope to not only educate the wine and viticulture industry, but I'm sure there's room for the beer and the spirits industry in the future too.
Great. Well said.
time for one more question.
Larry Perrine. I guess what's being said here is I made it, but not by myself. Cornell helped me, and Finger Lakes Community College also, and so I echo that support. But I sell wine in New York City, but not by myself. The promotion that's been done over the last 5 years, and especially the last 3 years in New York City to promote New York wines, has put us at the tipping point. We're just about there. But what I want to remind everyone is that New York City is the center of the world. Every wine district in the world, including the Finger Lakes or Long Island, are provincial districts. Everyone. We don't have the relationship to New York City that the Oregon industry has to Portland, the Washington industry to Seattle, the California industry to San Francisco, because they're provincial cities, New York City, the center of the universe. So we can't stop. We have to put pedal to the metal on the marketing and promotion of quality New York wines, beers, and spirits in New York City. The time has come to up the ante on this so we can do it successfully.
Well said. We reconvene at 1 o'clock?
We're going to break now for lunch and for 1 hour, and we'll reconvene here at 1 o'clock.
Thank you.
Ladies and gentlemen, please keep your